Welcome everyone to Living with the Times. This week's Torah portion is Pikudei. Ele Pikudei HaMishkan. These are the accountings of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. And the Parsha begins with a very, very detailed accounting of how much gold, silver, and copper were used in the construction of the tabernacle. The materials for the tabernacle were all given freely by the people, a free will offering. And everyone brought with great enthusiasm and excitement to build a tabernacle, a dwelling place for God in this world. And when they finish the tabernacle and are ready to put it up and begin the service, first they did an accounting. And we can learn much from this. The first thing we can learn is Moshe ultimately was responsible for building the tabernacle because God was instructing Moshe. And Moshe was instructing the people, all the artisans, and especially Bezalel. But at the end of the day, Moshe had to give an accounting for every single ounce of gold, silver, and copper. So this teaches us something so important in society, in politics, in leadership, that everyone is responsible. No one is above the law. No one is above the responsibility to make an accounting to the people, especially when it comes to money and monetary value. So Moshe gave this very detailed accounting. And so, of course, in various commentaries in Kabbalah and Hasidut, the idea of accounting becomes central to understanding this parsha, but many concepts that come and are connected to this. So the first thing is the concept, there is a judge and there is a judgment. This is so fundamental to Judaism, that we are not free will agents, that we don't have to account to anyone about anything. We're told there is a God who is a judge, and we are judged on a daily level, on a yearly level, and when we leave this world, we will be judged for what we did in this world. And of course, we have the month of Tishrei, the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the days of awe. The symbol of the month of Tishrei are the scales, where everything is judged. There's an accounting for every thought, speech, and action. God opens the books, and our signature is in the books. Our thought, speech, and action are all recorded and are judged. So this idea of an accounting runs through all of Judaism. And the idea of accounting has to do with responsibility. That having free will is a great privilege, but it's a great responsibility. We have to take responsibility for our actions. And that's why in the Torah, many times the idea of blessings and curses are spoken about. But when it gets down to it, the way that it's termed, curses really mean the consequences of our own actions. In other words, if we do what is good and right and proper, then we get blessings. And if we don't, then we get curses. But those curses are simply the consequences, the effect of a cause and effect, the consequences of our actions. So this week's Parsha is really what we call the headquarters of the concept of accounting. Reb Shlomo gave a beautiful insight because it says Mishkan, Mishkan. These are the accountings of the Mishkan Ha'edut, the Mishkan of testimony. And the word Mishkan is doubled. And so many people talk about two types of accounting. There's an accounting in this world, and there will be an accounting in the world to come. And Rav Shlomo added an insight. There's an accounting on what we do wrong, but there's also an accounting on what we do right. The accounting on what we do wrong is more obvious, but what does it mean we do an accounting on what we do right? So Reb Shlomo says that many times we do the right thing, but with a lack of enthusiasm, through rote and routine, without much thought. And we have to make an accounting for this. That just like we have to make an accounting for things we do wrong, we want to improve ourselves. We want to elevate ourselves. So we have to look carefully at the things that we're doing right. Are we doing them with any intent, with any kavanah? Or is it all egocentric and we're just doing things from rote just to be what's called motzi? In other words, to fulfill our obligation, but without very much spirit or soul or heart in it. Now, since the series is called Living with the Times, I do want to relate in the reality of today what we can learn from this. So this past week, there was a commission of inquiry that was set up after the horrible tragedy that happened in Meron approximately 4 years ago, where there was a stampede that killed, I believe it was 45 people and injured many, many people. It was a terrible, terrible incident. And a commission of inquiry was set up. In Israel, this is a very common thing, that when things go wrong, they're not just forgotten. The idea is, well, why did this happen? And who is responsible for it? And how can we fix it so it doesn't happen in the future? So I'm not going to comment so much on who this commission pointed their finger at or laid blame on. But the idea was everyone knew for years that, for anyone who's been to the gravesite of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the area is relatively small. And in the course of 24 hours, in the recent past, up to 500,000 people would visit this site within a 24-hour period. So at any given time, there were hundreds of thousands of people there, and everyone knew for years that it was a very dangerous situation. But no one knew what to do politically, religiously. How do we manage this? And so it just kind of happened every year, and everyone just kind of held their breath, hoping that nothing terrible would happen. But then the inevitable did happen. And so I'm only mentioning this anyone who the finger is going to be pointed out, they're not evil people. No one meant this to happen. No one wanted this to happen. But there has to be responsibility. If you can imagine, let's say, a government or a politician that does terrible things and isn't called to account for their deeds, that's what's called a dictatorship. In a regular society, a moral and ethical society, people make mistakes. People make wrong calculations. But there has to be an accounting. And I will mention one other thing is everyone knows we're in a war situation now. And what happened on October 7th, everyone knows already the army was not properly prepared. The intelligence community missed the mark altogether. And the government was operating under false assumptions about our situation with our enemies in Gaza. And so right now there will be a commission of inquiry, and everyone is putting it off to the end of the war. So I'm not placing blame anywhere, but it's a very healthy thing in Israeli society. After the Yom Kippur War, there was a commission of inquiry, and the prime minister at the time resigned shortly later. Different generals resigned. And that is a natural thing that will happen. Hopefully the war will be over soon. And everyone knows that there's going to be an investigation. And again, no one did anything evil here. No one did anything on purpose. But mistakes were made, serious mistakes were made, and we have to learn from them for the future. That's what an accounting is. So may we finish with this war quickly. May we be victorious. May we draw the proper conclusions, and may we go forward to a brighter future.